Tibetan Chinese and then English. 祈愿文第4页。
Sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly will I establish them in a state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. It is adorned with Meru, the supreme mountain, the 4 continents, and the sun and the moon. As a Buddha field, I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha fields. To the Lamas who possess the 3 kayas, I offer the outer, inner, and secret offerings. With my body, wealth, and all that is visible, please grant me the supreme realization, enlightenment. According to the dispositions and likewise the mental capacities of sentient beings.
생제도 다녀다 다지마 다마 주제는도 다도 소 그래도 이제 배배 주로나 바랑서 적당서 담비 주로 디심으로 가는 소리 근데 로바 랑세의 소리 강시 쇼고래서 저는 공부 돌리고 저는 고속도 니마 그러니까 밥을 해는 로만 인바만 해서 올랑도 거이나 강이나요 정말 록 이세라 제가 이렇게 치고 요래 록인데 이런데 몇 있어래 니가 손절이니까 가만히 봐 록이 손절되는 장소에 이제 기치 모여래
So this evening, I will, to all my Dharma friends of Garchen, I will give some instructions to the best of my abilities on how to take as the path what we encounter in our day-to-day activities, how to practice on an ongoing basis the Dharma while also engaging in the world. So this was the topic I was presented with by the Vajra Master Lama Thubten Nima. So probably most of you are older disciples and are familiar with that. But in general, we always talk about the two systems, the mundane system and the spiritual, the Dharma system. And that is what we call them by name. But then actually it is important to practice them as a union, to practice the worldly and the Dharma actually as one thing. In fact, they are not two separate things. It is very important to always engage in them as a union.
今天晚上我将尽我所能来跟你们讲述佛法如何在日常生活中来应用、来实践在这个道上。那这个题目是直贡宝法林的图登尼玛喇嘛所请求的。那我们都知道，在这个佛法在我们这个世间上，通常分成世俗谛以及圣义谛两个层次。那我们必须要了解的是如何来融合这两个层次。其实这两个层次是二合而为一，并不是真的有两个层次的。
那这个老年的如果同行业的呢，这个啥，就当地老年的他当我亲人了的呢，我就经常来的他，长期中的这个上来。10기 넘는 상계인이다. 온장 로를 좀 해줘. 로를 좀 다지 이들을 때는데 류디 무슨 접대요. 이게 그게 접대요. 접대 받으려더니 라왕에 도기자 강에 망보인 거요. 로를 도르더니 망나요. 지는 로를 도르니 답보신 감다 그때는 매일들 매일 옛날에들이 내도 웃지마. 요거요. 얘도 그만 연구 용어더니 우보라 되네 되는 거서 동의 좀 제한 거 같아. 나만 나서 제가 요리 담배 직접 먹을게. 제가 고요리 리즈 초고요리 리즈 드리쿵 차량 등에라서 봐. 무슨 관계가 되는 거 탑 제고요리. 무슨 마치 강한 매도 제와데 탑 대리 이바이만 대체게 요리. 제 제장들이 라왕 매복원이 따다다 동해 연구요. 내가 접지 못남아들 나오는 거 동해 망고 연구요래. 생존과 예노바 낭전이 차당 목숨을 되는지 강사 소실래든 남이 펜싱 받아들이 답도 좀 줘봐라서 동해 싸움좀 잡아 차당 듣고 동해 연구요래. 내 담실할 때는 답이 출업도 매봐셔래. 대회는 답이 출업돼 수업에 시해야 되는데 사실 좀 이제가 하고 요래 그러니 답을 출업 망보요래 출업 탐지를 용기 나래 요래 얘는 어디 갔다 가서 나빠 사진 출력이 사진 출력 같은 방송 요리 되나 이제電波に 있어. 그것도 준비해서 매번 통통도 동안이 있어. 추적 공부 제출이 동안電波に는 노요래. 뒤통수에다 뭐 세미인데電波に는 노요래 있지. 가이는 제일 요리는 사지 좀 뒤에 하고 그래. 사지 좀 뒤에 집에 싫어라. 그 사지 좀 싫어라 뒤에 저 다른 친구가 어디게 주탄이 이제는 맞아봐 로버르지 막 로버르 진행들 최근 처럼 답을 차이가 봐서 이제는 맞아봐 돈이 생겨요 그래서 이제는 제 이번 시바되나 돈이 대다지 로버르 들어오지 저거 차 주진세 저던 뒤에만 말이 실험들이 저리서 저리 뭐 보는 거 요래 진짜 더 같이 나발이 소리 망고리 상하게 교육 올라서 다음에 교육 받을 때 답이 주로 누구기 교육 봐. 그래서 그 정도 주체 좀 문신고 요래. 이번 집에 준비될 때 하던 거 갖고 자신 차로 동의돼. 수장도 맡아 봐. 드미에 배는 진짜 집에 하서
So what is the meaning, the purpose of these two systems, and the mundane system, and then the Dharma system, the mundane like the science and so forth. So first of all, the Buddha himself has said, within all sentient beings is the Buddha. Sentient beings are only obscured by temporary stains. And these are the temporary stains of dualistic grasping. And from that perspective, because we grasp at that duality, we perceive things in a dualistic manner, that is why also our physical body appears to be real. And the whole outer universe and all the beings in the universe appear to be real to us, to our dualistic perception. And because of that, we have no choice but always to encounter a lot of suffering, a lot of difficulties. There's a lot of suffering in the 6 realms of samsara. And compared to that, actually in the human world, it is like a pure land. And nevertheless, also in the human world, we experience suffering. We experience both happiness and suffering. So things ripen and suffering appears. And in the world, what we are trying to do is to find ways to prevent the results of suffering when they already have appeared. So this is what we are trying to do. We are trying to avoid difficult situations and suffering. And of course, this is also necessary in this world because we need to protect our body. We need to sustain, nourish our body. We need to protect the body from heat and cold and hunger and thirst and so on. And there is no other way for us to do that than to follow the mundane system. And even though we are trying to create happiness and sustenance of our body, still without any choice, we encounter suffering anyways, while we are trying to bring about happiness. For example, we experience a sudden outer suffering, like a disaster caused by the 4 elements. Or we experience inner suffering caused by the afflictive emotions of attachment, aversion, and ignorance, which lead to the ripening of a lot of suffering. We fight and there is conflict. So we experience unimaginable suffering in this world. We nevertheless, even though we try to protect our body, nevertheless we experience heat and cold, hunger and thirst and so on. And for this reason, because the outer system is not sufficient to dispel all our suffering, we also need the Dharma. It is indispensable. And so who knows the Dharma then? The Buddha has taught the Dharma. And so there are many religions in this world, and all of these religions have many good qualities. And so now here we are talking about in particular the Buddhist religion. that was taught by the Buddha. And so what it mainly teaches in essence is the two truths. That is the conventional truth of the infallibility of karma, cause and effect, and then the ultimate truth that phenomena are empty. So there are 84,000 Dharma teachings, but they all are included within those two truths. So the Dharma consists of these two truths, and the Buddha has perfectly realized it. And with the Buddha's perfect, all-knowing wisdom, the Buddha clearly had a knowledge of how things actually are, the nature of the phenomena as they actually are. And what he realized is that all the phenomena of samsara and nirvana do not inherently exist in reality. They only appear temporarily, just like ice on water, ice floating on water. So this is what the Buddha had realized, had knowledge of. And that is called the wisdom that knows how things really are. And then the Buddha also had cultivated the knowledge of all the things there are. And that is the great variety of phenomena that appear have all a cause and a condition. Nothing arises without causes and condition. All phenomena have their cause. And this is what the Buddha had realized. And so, as all of you have probably entered the Buddha's teachings, it is important that you consider the causes. That is what we consider as Buddhists. And more in particular, we are thinking about the causes of suffering and how to avoid them. And to avoid the causes of suffering is the practice of the Dharma. And so in order to do that, we first need to be introduced to that. We need to recognize or identify the causes of suffering, and then we need to eliminate them. So this wisdom that realizes all the things there are, that knows all the things there are, that is extremely difficult to comprehend. And apart from the Buddha, no one has actually fully realized it.
那么这两个系统，这个意义何在呢？那么我们这两个系统，一般我们讲说是世俗谛以及法谛或圣义谛。那佛在过去曾讲，众生皆具如来智慧德相，只因烦恼执着不能见得。这是一种暂时的现象，因为我们在一个二元对立的世界里面，我们执幻为真。那么以此呢，我们无所选择的有许多的受苦以及轮回，不能体验到这个世界事实上为清净的，受苦为真，当我们要远离痛苦，要躲避痛苦的时候，我们应该要去寻找苦的原因是在哪里。当我们知道苦的原因在哪里之后，我们才有可能远离痛苦。要远离痛苦，必须要找出这个原因。一般众生都会想自己的身体，不管是过冷、过热、过饥、过渴，都要保护身体，这是必要的。那我们同时也希望能够寻求快乐，可是我们却在这个世界上毫无选择地受到痛苦，不管是外在的痛苦，像天灾等等，或者是内心的痛苦，我们的执着，我们的贪嗔痴等等。我们虽想要得到快乐，可是却没有选择的受苦，这是为什么呢？那么我们要离开痛苦，我们就需要靠法。那谁有法呢？佛陀教导我们的法就是一个道。我们都知道，佛教是由释迦牟尼世尊所传下来的。他讲到这个世间上有两谛，一个是世俗谛，在世俗谛我们所讲的是因果业力的道理。在究竟的圣义谛来讲，我们讲的是性空的道理。不管他所讲的有84000种法门之多，都不外归纳成这4 这二谛，世俗跟圣义二谛。法有二谛，这个在佛陀在过去已经讲得很详细的。佛陀是具有遍知智的，他知道万事万物的本相、轮回、涅槃，它本质不实的，只是暂时存在的一个现象，就好像水跟冰两者之间的关系。他的智慧是能够知道这么一切的。所有的事情的发生，所有现象的产生，都是有因有果的，有其因才会有这个果的出现。我们身为佛教徒，重要的是要去看事情发生的原因在哪里。我们应该了解它的原因何在，那么去保护它，这样才能够真正的去除掉苦。所以佛陀的智慧是所有的事物非常难以理解的，这些道理除了佛之外，其他众生是很难以理解的。
这位早上我说，那个卡里节那样的，节当的西人，你说的了，这里说的一起的节有嘞，一起的节呢，你说话在这呢，这他老有嘞，这位呢我说的呢，那你听没了，其实老说帮我说一起有嘞，我说那个同会有嘞。这位这个吃着呢，热了没不东西到老的人呐，大家的他没办法说呢，他们说他不吃肉的，第一天我说别不当过的，怎么了的？然后这样的人，他不可能你给我嘛的，然后这把当个的都给你捐出去了的，出去了嘛的都给你捐，那捐了让给来这当班没把马这把当多的都没的呢，没这么好那就。活动有嘞，这嘛是个中间，这到西边搞的，他们一起接了，一起不有嘞，你一起发的了，那他当我说，我说是南方人啊，去了搞的了，去了去了，这把生意有嘞，这把生活有嘞，他们这把工作原定军呢，这把的。忙起来有点我唱嘛了，工作原地上这么讲吧，还搞有嘞，那个地方要有嘞，说到东面的大陆有，所以呢，这个东面的大陆老的有嘞，多少少差劲啦，东面的大陆老有嘞，跟那，查完个东了，现在这嘛我说多呀，那吃当那多呀，在那说话他多用了，在到就让。那把这有的影响的哩，第九个的生活当中，他特别有嘛的，第九个的生活当中，觉得好像差劲些办呗，这个多靠谱的，长期的马虎，门前呐，你咋子咋？我说哪怕长期的，哪怕劳力中的，哪怕个切实的讲的，对话当对话就上对话就说我，说对话搞里头，第就是搞里。我另外的搞人用的，这是生活当，我另外个就他们去，这玩意马上我要买来呀，东西的种呢，东西的就搞的，东西的用的上的就牛毛把的马上我即将要买来，牛毛把他们就咋讲，当地人是，这边呢这里。就查的，我说，通话上，那个通话上，这里哪个是不一样满意吧？我说通这个一样满意吧，通出吧，通话出吧，嘴巴这吧，一个月来这吧一边，这是讲多靠谱有的，这位一旦没能这里这结果了，这种结果的，这位这里，我呢，南巴的大这边呢。好吧，就别的了，他们大街档，小的大街档啊，结果那上了当啊，这里些的街呢，这里一般的这个燃气什么这个，就让干起来，是吧？这里1万几、万一吧，2万几就别了，这要的用不了的，这里一起的爬起。 Burning money is a nobody in the Jacob Trim Salary Mato, like a Matona. The Marichi of the Mario, but it's a Maton Carriage. Nobody in the oh, late to give it to the seminary or making tongue or Maton man teaching them. Sammy, the Libby is your The county so the jury is in the young Yori. The jury for the summer for the Arcadia. The jury for the summer, the Rapati, Pachet Hako Yori. What the laser Garchen Yori. The Ria Hako Hako Yori. That social domain of another thing. The Drikung, the Drikung, the summer tongue, or this summer tongue at the oh, you the Jabari, some of them. There, cup, Tela, Dominic, Jonah, Dominic, Pa, watch it of your Dominic, choose Jabari. Yeah, Dominic, run Jabari, run the Garden, you one ditch about it. So you was taught about, you was taught to you what you raise some, doing some, she was under the mount, or you what the 70 mount had any, or grand days, which are in some women the top of some good. Rank shit down Java Matanas, so the shit down there, so the you what the sort of job near it. That the doing time she knew what is yours. Who's really? Dieu, you what is yours. Kings of that's earlier in drama, been a magic term, power. What you got it to me? What longer some song? Some Mary, yeah, just some Johan songs, not Yakama Cartiona, you were Carile, Cheona, the Choson of Diamond, pass on of Diatella, you go marry. Theatre was a charm, didn't need. We job of what that Chilokatawa Manage, Tata to make it a tiny jet about them. Mount what Dominic Junior, what the moon about. Ranga, Tumche about it. This China, didn't really pay me or it. That they had a cartier body, yet it is chilly about, they pass about the Triona. The little children get me, should have watch of your age.
And so whatever we do, whatever action we engage in, it is also important that we know how to properly engage in those actions. And when we know that, then a certain a confidence or a knowledge about how to properly act will arise. And once that arises, that is confidence, a certainty in how to engage in action, once that arises, then it is very easy to engage in proper action. And so we can observe the outer world as it is explained by the scientists, and because scientists explain the world to us in this way, we trust in that, because we can see that with our own eyes. So that is why we can trust in that. And even though the world is created or exists in such a way, still, even though we know that, we still encounter much unimaginable suffering, and then there is nothing that we can do about it anyways, even though science explains the world to us. And that is why the Dharma is so important, because when we find ourselves in a hopeless situation, then without the Dharma, if we only live in this world, then sometimes we find that there is no other way than even to commit suicide. We find no other way out. But then if you ask, by killing myself, can I make an end to my suffering? You cannot make an end to your suffering, because karma is still there. And until karma comes to an end, it will continue to ripen anywhere in the 6 realms of samsara again. And in this way, you go in circles like the wheel of a car, always turning and turning. And the fault is not to know that. So it is important to understand that and to be confident about that. So whatever religion then we practice, for example in the Buddhist religion and also in other religions, we cultivate faith. And in Buddhism we cultivate the 3 types of faith. First, there is the clear faith. We are inspired by knowing the qualities of the 3 jewels. And that kind of faith of inspiration is also present in other religions. So we think about the great qualities of the jewels. And then there is the longing faith, and also that other religions possess. The longing faith is to long for liberation from suffering. And also other religions practice that. And not even only religions, anybody wants to be free from suffering, really. Even an animal tries to avoid suffering, even though it doesn't know its causes. But for example, if it's too hot, then it tries to hide under like a piece of wood or some kind of a tree, or it goes into the water or something like that. So it tries to avoid, even though it doesn't think about the causes of suffering. And that is why it can't really be liberated from suffering. And the causes of all our difficulties are very subtle and hard to understand, hard to see, very difficult to realize. And the most subtle form of suffering, the most subtle causes of suffering, is only something that actually the Buddha has fully realized. So it is important to think about those causes of suffering, though. And in Buddhism, one of our most important prayers is when we say, "May all beings have happiness," and the causes of happiness. So then, what are the causes of happiness? If you're happy, what is the cause of happiness? All happiness has its cause in love. There is no happiness that doesn't come from love. And all suffering, why do we suffer? Where does all suffering come from? All the suffering comes from our negative emotions. And all the negative emotions have their root cause in self-grasping. So that is the most subtlest of causes that is hard to see, because it is not an object that can be seen. It's not a form, so we can't see it and we can't hear it. We can't even think about it. We can't touch it. It is not such an object. So because it is not an object that can be perceived with our senses in this way, it is very difficult to understand it. And because of that, we doubt. We wonder if it's true or not. We doubt about the causes of our suffering. And therefore, according to the Buddhist view, we say it is in the beginning most important to think about the causes, to investigate, to really analyze the causes. And through that, cultivate trust. If you cultivate trust in the causes, then surely and just naturally you will engage in proper conduct. And you will engage in proper conduct without falling under the power of your emotions. You will have an independence of mind. And that is the 3rd type of faith, the trusting faith, the trust in karma. And that is like a law that you have in your mind. For example, in a country you have different laws. There are outer laws. But still, sometimes when nobody sees it, nobody's looking, we don't really observe the law. When the police is not around, we do whatever we want, basically. We don't observe the law. But in Buddhism, the law is in the mind because we understand the causes. We think about karma. And thinking about karma, it doesn't make a difference whether other people see it or not, because we know that it is wrong anyways. So we trust in karma, and that comes from thinking about the causes, and that is very important. So in terms of cause and effect, for us it is probably easier to understand the coarse forms of the causes, the coarse causes. But then it is very difficult for us to understand how karma really actually works, how these subtle causes lead to each other, to different types of suffering. But how you can think about it is that you can observe all the different forms of suffering that you experience. Illness, problems, all kinds of difficulties. And then think about each and every one of them has their individual, very particular cause. It comes from a certain cause. So you can understand the causes by observing your own suffering and then contemplate, because there is such a form of suffering, what kind of cause would that correspond to, and identify it in that way. And then once you have identified that, your particular form of suffering, then who is responsible for that? Who is causing that suffering? It is myself. I am to blame for that. And how have I done that? How have I created that? I have created that with my own negative emotions. So then you are able to trace, and you see that the cause is that afflictive emotion in your mind at this moment. And then you are able to see the fault in the emotion as it arises. And then only by arising, you already understand the fault in the emotion in the future. And the moment it arises, you see, this is my true enemy. As it is said in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, you need to tame the enemy of your own hatred. Unless you tame the enemy of your own hatred, outer enemies will only increase. So it is to identify the negative emotion, like hatred, as your true enemy, the one who is creating all the suffering. And that's the one right there, you have it in your mind. So in this way you can understand the causes. They are those negative emotions presently in the mind. And if you know that, then you will be able to be careful and observe your inner law. And whenever things happen, you will see that you are the one that is responsible. For example, if you are wrongly accused, if you're sued at court, even though you haven't done anything wrong, you might just think that that is unfair because I haven't done anything wrong. But then if you think about karma, actually you can think that then since it still happens, there must be some causes that I have created in the past, in a previous life. So what kind of causes are that? What kind of actions have I committed? So you will more face inward and think about your own causes of suffering, and not face outward and blame someone else for your suffering. So the purpose of the Dharma practice, therefore, is to find a way to avoid the causes of suffering. And if you are able to do that, then even if you encounter suffering presently, you will be able to tolerate this difficulty, and also you will be able to avoid more suffering in the future by refraining from acting out on the negative emotions through recognizing them. And so in this way you're able to observe your own law inside your own mind. And so this is how the Dharma will bring benefit to you, and that is why it is so important. So that is of the three types of faith, that is the third type of faith, called the trusting faith. And when that has really arisen in your mind, then the Dharma practice that you engage in will truly become like a useful, a meaningful practice.
无论我们在这个世界上做什么事情，我们应该知道如何来做，什么是应该做，要怎么样来做的。当我们的一些想法、甚至是一些念头升起的时候，我们应该要知道怎么样来应对。在外在气世间的一些现象，是科学家可以用种种不同的方法来举证，那我们也可以用眼睛来看得到，所以一般人相信科学。可是即使我们的现代的科学可以解释很多的事情，却没有办法让我们能够完全的独立自主。我们常常会感觉到困在一个 境界里面、一个情况里面没有办法求得解脱，甚至有些人在这种状态的之下呢，想到要自杀。那我们应该问：自杀就真的能够解决问题吗？并不是这样子的，它只是造成另外一个轮回的开始一样。轮回就像车轮的旋转一样，它其中的过患就是我们不了解、不知道这个之中的原因跟道理。不管是佛教或者是其他的宗教，我们都讲到不同的信心。第一个是一种清净的信心，深信三宝，这个是其他宗教也有的。第二种信心是一种渴望的信心，就是我们希求解脱。这种想法是所有的众生都有的，不管是不是人，在畜生道的众生也是有的。比如说天气热的话，他们感到热了就会躲到木头底下，或者是在树底下，或者跑到水里面。他即使不知道为什么会那么热，他也知道要怎么样来脱离痛苦，或想要脱离痛苦。那么我们要怎么样才能真正知道能够离开这个苦恼呢？这个是唯有佛陀才能够真正知道的。可是我们常常念的，事无量心里面讲到，愿众生具乐，得具乐的极乐因等等。我们必须要知道快乐的原因是从哪里来的？什么是造成快乐的原因呢？它的原因就是慈爱或者是大爱。那痛苦的原因从何而来呢？是自我们的负面情绪而来的，根源就是我们自己的我执。那这间的其中的关系可能是不可见，是不是听也听不清楚，也不可能不见得能够理解。那因为它不是一个外在一个具体的一个物件，甚至有些人就觉得说这个关系是难以相信的，而起的怀疑了。那么会问说，这个真的是受苦的原因吗？那么在佛教里面，我们所提倡的就是要分析它的原因是从何而来，因为我们透过的分析而产生的了解，导致有一个信心，这个就是一个深的信心。那这就是第三种信心，这个是佛教我们有了这个信心之后，我们就知道说我们什么样是适当的行为，也能够给我们带来一个独立的这个心。这种层次的信心，就好像是内在心里面的一种律法一样。我们知道国家有国家的法律，可是有的时候呢，我们有些人呢，当警察在旁边的时候，我们就非常的守法；当警察不在的时候，或没有人在的时候，我们就不见得那么守法了。可是一个学佛的人到达了这个层次之后，只要他想到因果，而且他深信业力的话，不论是不是有人在他的旁边，他只会做他应该做的事，因为他知道因果业力的道理。那么我们观察不同种类的痛苦，那去意念、去思索每一种痛苦，它来自的这个原因有什么样的不同，再去观察痛苦的这种经验，来去做内心的一种思辨，到底是谁做的？为什么会有这个痛苦？你不得不归咎到这个原因来自于我。那为什么会有这个痛苦呢？一般是来自于负面的这种情绪，这种执着烦恼。如果我们能够这样慢慢一步一步的追究下去，就能够找到它的根源，就知道这些烦恼，它的过患主要是来自于烦恼，而不是在别人。当这种烦恼升起的时候，负面情绪升起的时候，我们马上能够体认，这个就是我真正的这个敌人。所以在佛子行37颂里面也有提到这样子，什么是我们真正的敌人？我们要去体认它，而不是外在的众生，而是自己的内在的这种烦恼跟执着。我们必须要常常小心观察，而且持守内在的这种律法。 有些人可能觉得说，哦，我遭遇到很不公平的事情，而觉得自己被冤枉了，想说我也没做什么不对的事情，为什么会有这个不好的待遇？可是如果我们想到业力的道理的话，我们就可以知道，这个我们今天所受的都是由过去的因所造成的。我们要做的是往内去思索，探讨这个苦的原因是在哪里，而不是指着外面去责怪别人。那我们讲到修法，就是要去找到苦的这个原因。在现在的短暂的这个时间上来讲的话，能够帮助我们更加的安忍，更能够忍辱。在未来的话，我们更能够忍受更多的痛苦，因为当它升起的时候，我们就能够体认出来，认出它来。我们了解自己的心，不但就可以利益自己了，这是第三种层次的这个信心。这个就是我们修行应该到达的一个层次。
동원으로만 이만만 보리 대쇼 동칸들이 하여튼 같이 보리 소소나 엄마 로드는 가봤더니 주만고 티요래 요나양 좀들이 이치요래 문에 숙자지로 니들이 상이 봐 야다마지 니 하고 요래 대매 배들이 유모가 유바지를 되게 라지를 라운드를 걸 쏴로 요래 대회는 이거를 양당양들 들이 주로 탐지를 트와땅 들이 집으로 싸우냐도 양도 땅나 들이 문을 찾아 타와라는데 하고나 들이 소소라들이 양당의 이시를 계속 요래 대특적이 있어버려래 대지어서 봐더니 양당양도 싸우는 땅 그게 튀어래 답게 레디게 고요래 대고지 그리지 봐도 용제 들이 저도 교라고 보면 용네 어떤 유모만 대기에서 레드 사서 님들은 대선이 레레전스리 들이 싸웠다나 들이 대도 독해이 봐지 오 선대 유모가 그 레사 대 동의점 책 이감이 니보데 랩디 초와데 랩나 들이 이감이요 들이 동의대 바지라로 귀들이 냠생용네 고 용제 들이 양다양도 용들이 또데 들이 기방을 나초게 유모가 바카같이 터뜨리게 네가 차고 요리 대회는 유모가 근데 랑게 유모라 유바데 서로 카가 차고는 다운 준비에 나와데 차지 시바데 이시마기나 깨트고 요만 라운 메보고는 자다 명목왕이 효야지 좀 제래 주로 단계가 하고요 하고는 등에 라키면 애들이 망고시해요 대회나 준비시고 간리 하시는 무슨 테마가 지금 드라마처럼 이시 맞지와 대래 무슨 테마가 무슨 망통과 어디 가리고 있더라 그래서 메토지가 사우는 데다야 메토지가 사우는 데나 메토 시바들로 오면 메토지 사우는 데에서 스스로 하고 나도 메토지 사우는 데에 이 메토지 이었던 가도던 연기라서 찍도 하고 듣지 말라 이런 사우는 데는 메토지 랑저당 가도당 드마라서 차참 사우는 데래요 대비상 모든 오미 무슨 진통 마착양 세분은 유모가들아 내가 다다다서 요리지 야가 산속생마한테 봤다고 요리지 미바가 나디나 유모가 좀 됐다고 요리도 양도 싸움하다가 근데 샘 싸우고 차를 들이 라들 제도 로지 이렇게 요리 되게 하짝 딱지다 뒤치고 요리 내가 싸우는 데나 이렇게 나그 샘을 싸우는 데로 샘도 말밤이 나나 뭐랑 이리고 갑자기 요리 람hin고 내가 싸우는 데로 싸우는 오 요살이 이런 그 밥을 뺏는 걸 로르 땅놈 요리 뒤니봐 무슨 미니다 로르 소소지 this was about that. The Greek summer has up to the door to shit some of them. Only knew what the Haran Raso. Moose of Tutti what they did. Or did the 8,000 Tanajo and Yotam Mason? Don't you know my bill to dress it to dress it to Jiwan Kari. Ah, Tanga Mazuka is there no Jiwan Lansatana Kari was a low shadow. All the Jokari, you see them. 자이가 다 좋고요. 세상에 중지 하고 그러나. 오, 세상도 뭐 란지 차도 뭐랑 이제는 도저히 더 과라다라서 차요. 네, 그들이 호 샘이 제대로 가서 찍발이 도저히 그 샘을 가서 그 샘이 찍발이 대화도 봐 찍발이 능이도 찍발이 오나. 족대지 다 대봐. 능이 자꾸 등에 돼. 가서 뭐 이렇게 대화 가리서 등이 좀 이렇게 잡아라 속대 사실 까다. 근데 시기들이 계속 소라티 자라마는 게 먹고 나면 또또자 또 빠지는 때에 이제 너무 빨라. 근데 주로다 비어서 나오다만 근데 랑처랑 성적 또 펜진 빨라 있나요? 엄마 펜진 빨라 있나요? 야 근데 랑처부터는 상마들 빵랑 나와 정도로 문 타버리는 거예요. 이거 총총을 던져버려. 이거 총총을 봐도 로직들이 이런 거래. 이 하자 같이 버리셔야지.
So there are many, most of you who are older, senior disciples, and so then what is the purpose of mentioning these things again, things that we have heard before? It is because it is so important. And also from my own experience, when I was young, for example, I can only speak of the importance of thinking about it again and again. Also, when I was young, I have heard the Dharma many times. I have learned much about the Dharma. And I always did have a belief, a trust in karma. Even though I had a belief in karma, still I wasn't so sure about its most subtlest forms, how karma is actually true. When we think about the most subtle workings of karma that we cannot actually see with our eyes. So that is difficult to comprehend and therefore difficult to believe. And then even though we generally believe karma, then it still happens that when a very strong emotion arises, we have no choice but just act out on it. We are completely overpowered by it. And so that is why it is important that we really think about this again and again to really get a very good understanding about it. And so this is how I personally contemplate it. You contemplate it to the point where you really deeply trust in it. And in order to do so, you need to think about it again and again. And so many of you Dharma friends know about karma and you also believe in karma. And that is an understanding. We have first of all an understanding, we do understand that. But then what is also important is to experience it. And that is in all our activities and day-to-day experiences, to think about it, to apply that understanding. For example, what kind of emotion has arisen today in me? And then what kind of actions did I engage in? What kind of karma did I accumulate today? And what will be the result of that? So you think about each and every experience and thing that arises each and every day and apply that to karma. And so then there will be a very clear knowledge of seeing, that it is really the afflictive emotions that lead you to engage in action and accumulate karma. And then that in turn leads to a certain result of suffering and so on. So when you can trace it in this way, whenever a certain feeling arises, you have a suffering, a misery, you feel miserable, then you think about what kind of karma is that, what kind of action, what kind of afflictive emotion does that correspond to from your own experience. So this is how you put your understanding into practice, into an actual experience, by applying it again and again. And then eventually, through experiencing it again and again, it leads to realization. And then once you have realized how it is, then just naturally you will not be overpowered by your afflictions, but you will naturally detach yourself from them. You will see that you will see the afflictive emotion as it arises. And so this is difficult to accomplish if we do not really trust in karma. Because when an ordinary affliction arises and we don't really trust in karma, then we will not be able to really deal with it, and we will again fall under its power and act out on it. So many of my Dharma friends know about karma, but still many times they ask about it and they have a trouble. They are troubled by this because they say that even though I do understand, I understand that it is karma and my afflictive emotion and so forth, I understand all that, but then when suffering arises, I can't manage. I cannot deal with the difficulty with my emotions. And so, and this is because I have not fully trusted in the workings of karma. And it is difficult to trust in things that we cannot directly see, apparent. For example, if you take the example of a flower and its seed, you can see, for example, a seed, the seed of a flower. You can understand that the flower comes from that seed, but you can't really see that. You cannot see all the qualities of the flower and the seed, even though within the seed all the qualities are contained, the shape and the color and all the attributes of the flower, and the honey that comes from it, its brightness and so forth. All of that is complete within the seed, but still we can't see that. And only by seeing the seed, we can't really trust that this will be that kind of flower, because we can't see it. And in the same way, we can't really see directly the workings of karma, and that is why it is hard to trust. But still, when we see the afflictive emotion, and it's if we understand the afflictive emotion, we can see that the afflictive emotion has this potentiality, just like the seed, to bring about a certain result. And likewise, also bodhicitta has a certain potentiality to bring about something, a force. So when that afflictive emotion arises, immediately you can know that and can see that this is this force that will bring about a certain kind of fault. So you think about this again and again, and when you contemplate this, it will become clear to you. And when your mind is clear, then you will actually have a wish to practice what should be practiced and give up what should be given up. So therefore it is very important to think about it and to apply it to your mind by observing your mind, just like observing a seed of a flower, and understand that it is because I'm completely enveloped by unawareness and ignorance that I give way to my afflictive emotions and I cannot recognize the attributes in the seed. But still you can trust and know that this is how it actually is anyways. I just can't really see it because I'm unaware. But a certain afflictive emotion has a certain potentiality and it will manifest. Whatever appears, in fact, is the reflection of our afflictive emotions. And then think about various frightening manifestations, like a poisonous snake, for example. Do I want to be born as a poisonous snake? Clearly not. So how would it be if I'm born as a poisonous snake? It would be an unbearable suffering. So then what can I do not to be born as a poisonous snake? And how anyways is one born as such a snake? So then you contemplate in this way, and then you see that the fault of such a frightening incarnation, for example, is hatred, anger. So if there is hatred, then it is guaranteed that one will also be born as such a poisonous snake, for example. It will manifest. As Jigten Sumgön had said, Karma is the reflection, the momentary reflection of our inner thought. So it actually reflects in the outer form. For example, jealousy and hatred and so on reflect in the form temporarily of frightening appearances. For example, a poisonous snake or a scorpion and so on. And even though they temporarily appear that way, their mind is still the same. The basis of our mind is exactly the same. We all have the same wish to be happy and not to suffer. So even though that snake has a different body, our mind is exactly the same. So think about these words of Thubten Sumgön. Karma is the temporary reflection of the inner thought. So that is very powerful, and this is also how I have learned and have been introduced by my own root guru. For example, to really think about actual things that appear, manifest, like a snake or anything frightening, and then relate that to its causes, the afflictive emotion, and so on. So if you really understand it, then you will be able to observe your own law inside your own mind. And then it will ease the conduct, the relation between friends, between disciples, and so forth, because we will do the right things. And we will want to do them from the bottom of our heart. We will naturally do the right things and give up the wrong things. Naturally, we will want to practice virtue, even the slightest, smallest virtue. And we will want to give up non-virtue, even the smallest non-virtue. So that is why it is so important to understand all this.
在场的许多位都是老学生，那么你们可能会想说，那既然你们都懂，为什么又提到这些基本的问题呢？因为这个关系是非常的重要的。当我在年轻的时候，我听到这个法非常多次，那我自己一直深信因果业力的道理。可是我还是不是很了解业力是如何在细微的层次如何起作用的。我的对它的相信也不是真正到那么细微的层次的。那么我们只是知道有这样一件事，还是会被它掌控的。所以我们应该做的事情是要去反复的来去思维，而能够产生一个很深程度的一个信心。许多的佛友都了解业力的道理，也应该能够相信。可是我们要真正的去体验它，也是很重要的。我们才知道说怎么样能够真正的做应用，应该做什么事，造什么业，然后每日的来这样的行施，能够见到一个相、一个情况、境界，能够很清楚的了解业力。那么能够避免，这样才能够真正避免苦的因。不管是我们的内心的喜乐或者是痛苦，当这些情绪升起的时候，我们就要加以思维，从何而来？那它又跟何种烦恼来所对应？透过这样反复的思维，能够进一步的这个了解，而能够真正的能够远离他，不要那么样的那个执着，他能够有出离心。当他这个烦恼、这个念头升起的时候，马上可以体认出他来，不会被他带着走。我有许多的佛友都知道这样的道理，可是我们在进一步的询问，却还是不免受到痛苦。在烦恼升起的时候，我们没有办法马上去体认它，为什么呢？因为我们还没有对它有真正的这种信心。我们知道 花是从种子而来的。可是当我们在看到种子的时候，我们很难去看到花的种种功德，不管是它的形状、颜色、花蜜的甜度等等，其实一切都含藏在这个种子当中，都完整的含藏在中。可是我们看到种子的时候，不见得能够见到这么多的相状，因为我们没有真正的了解，没有真正的信心。如果我们不见因果业力的道理的话，没有真正的信心的话，我们是没有办法脱离痛苦的。当一个烦恼升起来的时候，我们应该知道它所对应的潜质是什么，会导致什么事样的后果。当我们菩提心升起的时候，我们也应该了解它会帮我们带我们导向哪里。那么会有什么样的过患，或者没有过患，我们头脑应该非常的清楚，应该了解。如此来，我们可以了解说，应该要怎么样子来去知道一些事情，应该要怎么样的来去做应做的事情。所以，我们如果说能够见到种子，可是没有办法见到花的一些种种的功德、一些特性的话，这因为来自于我们内心不是完全的真知，也是我们的无明，而没有办法体认种子的种种特性。当我们不见到它种子的种种特性，并不代表它不在那里。那每一样的情绪、每一样的思维、每一样的烦恼都有特定的这个潜质。当我们看到毒蛇或者是蝎的时候，我们第一个反应就是说：哦，我很害怕，我不要这些众生。可是我们有去想说，为什么会成为蛇蝎呢？它的过患在哪里？那它有一个怕人的这个特质，它真正的过患是来自于内心的这种嗔恨心。吉天松公主师曾经讲说，业力是内心念头的暂时显现，因为我们的嗔恨、我们的嫉妒，而暂时投射成蛇跟蝎。那即使暂时显现成外相如此可怕的蛇蝎，它的内心还是一样的。所有众生的内心是一样，心的本质本性是一样的。我们应该好好的思维吉天松公主师对于业力的解释，而能够了解这个业的这个力量。这个是我的上师所教导我的。因为我们看到蛇而内心心生恐惧，我们应该要马上去思维它的因是来自于哪里，而能够进一步了知内在的一种律法，以及我们自己应该所做的一种应对的这个行为。我们对于我们的朋友，对于我们的学生等等，我们应该怎么样的应对，怎么样的来做，怎么样的来取舍呢？是不是恶的要舍去，善的要取起来？那么，如果能够真的有这样的程度的了解的话，我们不会因为一个善是非常的小就不去做，也不会因为一个恶是非常的小就去做了，因为我们知道它的后果，它的业力会导致什么样的后果。
因为越过了什么的来这里。说东面当东面叫他找了，这萝卜干年轻不就苹果的，萝卜干去的，我说是东面干的了，就干的那么些错，这觉得错怎么是觉得有呢？大，觉得有的几年就那帮人把这很当看的也就越听就觉得，这个当我。남인주대로 남인주대로 저서 저 세상지 혼나 인주민지잖아 냐와 지와 냐와디 감리제는 냐와디 세상을 안 듣고 첩대요 세상 그를 안 주는 딱지 때문에 세상 그를 안 주는 mesela 냐와디 첩종을 요래 제가 딱지 때문에 냐와디 세상이 강한 말이 있다 เป็น차주야 메이지를 론주 파마, 자로, 파섬 초가 요나야. 도와지 빠른 참고미나. 또 시간은 뜨리지 로주 탐지라고 장이 차대요. 야라 탐지 쪽수해. 뜨리 가와 탐지 도자. 뜨리 초가야. 지라서지. 정말 동해는 야와는 랑이 차들이 세상을 랑시세라. 오, 세상도 야와니 각한 말이지. 뒤에다가 유모를 해야 되니까. 따뜻한 짓에서 공부해서 고 정직히 사업을 하고 유모가 커를 하서 그랬더니 동해다가 예다는 뒤에다가 설상을 하서 그랬더니 예다 무슨 접지 오늘 그런 무슨 통금도 없었나? 따다다 하람 차이디 좀 뒤집혀서 잡으려는 요래. 그러면 남인이 되면 소소라랑 도와도 되도록 적요래. 내장 박차가 적요래. 얘는 같이 있어. 오, 냐와 세부 적요래서. 위에 눈에 냐와 세부 적요나. 세부 적요나 레라오래. 라고 하죠. 세부 적요 레라오래. 오늘 다다 무슨 래. 다다 무슨 래. 다다 무슨 말이 사실서 다다 형들이 세대 니가르다 말람 믿지 말해 말람다고 좀하다고 소 주다다 말람다고 좀하다고 통 다냐와 말람다고 좀하다고 통을 다다 무슨 레드 메여서 무슨 해서 다냐와 무슨 내가 무슨 차지 그러지 그 강이나 무슨 니가 다다 대바래지 지금은 가서 또 말람 된다고 저 말이죠. 네 내랑 박차 남자가 마음에 했다고 치 박차 좋잖아. 다른 게도 산이 딱 바로 말람 되는 지도 로고요. 네 세제 말람 되는 거 동이 찌빠 찌짜 용거요. 그 강은 용거도 다 박차 거기 용거 박차라서 용거요. 제일 셨대나 오, 다 한식이 집에 라망배가 지금와서 요걸 하고 뭐요 말이. 뒤지는 따지가 다 저지 매번 맞다나. 다음에도 사모는이랑 미는 거가 다시나. 딸 내가 먼저 잡감래. 남인지 되면 냐와지. 근데 왕거 제가 가시 양 개벌에 띠자 사바당 길에서 매일 지용을 매일 지나. 왕거 되어서 라만거만 지어하는 게라. 랑거 먼저 내줘 와고 보지. 여기서 뭐서 뭐지나. 내줘 중요하라 계속. 다 야와는 양짝 타로나. 내 가래리. 다 중중도 되어. 양 촉바자서로 봐도 지혜로 다 촉바자서로 봐도 보소. 가래리 뒤도 내 뒤도 싹 샤다들로 봐도 지혜나. 근데 로바지 딱 동에 뒤도 용구요라. 야, 내 총총서라 같이 이곳을 로마한테는 대시 요는 뭐 코랑한 일 양가과 매츠과 라서과 등이 만든가 용구요래 내 최총 레라 차와다라과 라서걸 제발게 되도록 등이 뒤도 내 맛에 받으면 해봐요. 남인지 되어야지 야와지 왕을 되어야지 다 나랑 내 가리사랑 대 점중이 되어야지 오늘 방송과장 살아지 해당을 해. 다 중중이 되어 세파 중중 파도 받다고 용화 철도 받다고 다 레드 좀 펜으로 주세요. 레드 다 레삭시삭 양 펜으로 그러라. 근데 타와비 받더니 용나 대회상 것도 좀 용무 받대 문진도 봐. 라디오 용무 같은 전남지에서 봐. 무슨 차이 버리. 대적자 다 이치진데 다 무슨 차이래. 얘는 다 미치라 차도라면 자 차도를 꼭 가르치는 제사는 남상 때문에 용어한테 좋은도 맞춰라 문에 용어 뭐지 갖고 이거래 가리 나디 같이 있는 용어가 잡다 차대요 오 나디 이제 뭐가랑지에 용어가 잡다 차대요 가리 그 말아치도 못하면 생일 이마대나 나로 호배가 싸고요 야, 삼바된 흥기도는 제를 주고 돈이 오, 되게 너무 팔아고 자 너무 하고 라다 니발 너무 디 자단 배웠어 다설 하고 코라 가르치는 제가 말하고 너무 뭔가 하고 잠시로 차는 거예요. 되게 너무 담지 나진에서 사지 그 인fin을 로래 인fin은 파신 쪽으로 잡을 제어요. 파시로 로샤용을 요래. 나디용이 이거 먹어도 잡을 차대요. 대별에 이사들이 되는 상바당 이제 거리 속에 다 상바당 이제 자치 보면 이제 어떻게 하고 상바당 이제 가래 다른 그 조平心 속에 상반 진짜 서로 쳐와요 받았잖아 저런 쳐와지 계속 이 민기래 대대죠 우리 대화도 대전 대리 서로 집중해야 그래 양도 생기는 이제 꼭 민기래 사서는 사계의 장에서 초사도 상반도 민기 코나 쌓여올 80도 제발이 대회를 드린 맞으라 이미 드린 것서 대화가 이었다 등에 저 58을 드리지 차라 드리네 주가 잡고 요래서 배나 또 나빠 사지 빠이나 라비시를 다 가리버리들 그러는 거라 또 망자야 잡도 막 배움직에는 초대 인지도 요래 다 배움도 가리 난 나빠도 그 째와 거래지 째와다 보내 조바고 내가 요거 같이 싸움도 째와도 조바고 이렇게도 째와도 조바고는 난 빈칭 잡고 차간다 레저를 같이 제거다 야 또 빈칭 잡고 차간다 나 나빠이 야 나빠 이렇게 가래 나 지금 째와고 째와도 나 조바도 고선이라 저는 나빠 문에서 차요 나 나빠 레라 말에 딱히 tamam 저리 딱히더라고 나 째와도 조바도 제 술핑도 다 산이 소소랑 리듬도 남친 버티라 강과 조보 너를 참아 역설이 닦아리 선기부 들어오라 저는 따뜻하고 여기도 봐주니 사지를 잡지 사지 좀 못 가리 사지라고 되게 싫었다 느끼는 거 되게 싫었다 사지를 좋아해 네 싫어 되게 중원적인 것이 가까이 신이 나중에 중시 제가 그 연진이 되는 다 상문제를 다 보자고요 다 상문제를 나야 요나라 데르티는 내가 그 돌이 되어 상문제를 돌이 야 이제 맞춰서 줘봐라서 봤더니 야 타속 사지 공방 상바당 문제를 했더니 상비나 싫어를 때는 타속 사지 공방 타고 이거 저때도리는 쭈르면은 준도 졸랑을 싸고 시집도 되고를 타집 싸고 또는 빵은 저도 좀 마시나 그냥 동네가 저기요 나디 속체 제서 출신아 이 감옥에서 봐야지 출신이 양성만 하나 미배 내작도 내배 미작도 봐서 나한테 동네지 내바에 민고마가 성기는 민송도 싫어요래 무슨 배도 돈 맞춰 비티 충충 싫어하는 게 레전드에서의 시기에서는 충충은 지와 충충은 원 유모가 충충을 잘하 문제가 들이자더니 문제다 다들 동네 다니게 듣고 이거래 마음과 눈이 병문지는 빵 듣고 이거래 라브라마는 진짜 듣고 이거래 제가 그거는 뭐 차다를 지상체 들이 저도 안하게 참나들이 뱅가를 했지
So then also another line we say in our prayer is, may all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. So when we read this prayer, then it is necessary that we also think about then what are the causes of suffering. So we apply that to our own suffering. I have a certain kind of suffering. So what is the cause of that suffering? So then I investigate, I try to observe and find that cause of suffering, and the negative emotion related to it. And then how does it ripen? Then also we need to understand how the afflictive emotions then ripens into suffering. There's different forms and levels of ripening. So the first result that ripens is called the full maturation. So first, for example, if there is the affliction of hatred, the full maturation of hatred would be to be born in the hell realm. And so then one is born as a hell being. Because the hell is the reflection of hatred itself. So you can understand hell by observing hatred. If you look at the hatred itself, that hatred has the nature of hell. That is the hell. So actually the hell and hatred are not separate things. You can understand hell by understanding hatred. So for example, if there's a person that has everything, person is very rich, has a family, a spouse, and so on, but if the person is very angry all the time, they will always fight at home. They will not live in harmony with anyone. And then there's no benefit in all their possessions. They will just cast away their possessions, their house. Everything will appear to them like an enemy, like a threat. And in the end, in the future, they might even kill themselves. So that is all the nature of hatred, and that creates the hell realm. So you can understand the nature of hell by understanding the nature of hatred. It's the same nature. So hell and hatred are not separate. If you remember what Jigten Sumgön had said, karma is the reflection, the momentary reflection of the thought inside the mind, of whatever happens in the mind. And so then hatred naturally will reflect as, and likewise also greed and stinginess will naturally reflect as a hungry spirit, and so on. So even though we might think that we can't really see that, and we can't see the hell, we can't see the hungry spirits, so we can't really believe it, but actually we can observe it in this world, because after the full maturation, then there is also another result, which is called a result that is similar to the cause. And so that is what we can actually then observe in this world, the remainders of this full maturation. And we can see all the suffering of the 6 realms in this world, therefore. So first there is the full maturation, and that is the actual experience of the 6 realms in samsara, which becomes our reality as it becomes the visions of our own karma and our own imprints in the mind. So it is a mental expression. And so that being said, one might think, so hell is only an expression of the mind, it's only the mind. So if it's only the mind, then it's not so bad, and we can deal with that. But what's real is this life. So actually the Buddha said, it's not real, this life is also not real. It appears to us this way. So how it appears to us is that the daytime experiences are our reality. And at night when we dream, that's an illusion. We don't think it is real. This is our perception. And so if you are able to see this life as an illusion, unreal like the Buddhas, then also you will be able to see hell like such an illusion as it is. But if this human existence appears to be real to you, in the same way hell is a real experience, a reality where you actually, in the midst of it, engaging in action, you're in there. And so this is how we need to understand it, because normally we think that this life in the daytime is the reality and that nighttime is like an illusion, a dream. Our dreams are just illusions. But our dreams are also only the reflections of our karmas, karmic visions, our habitual imprints in the mind. And this whole life has the same nature. It is the reflection of the imprint in our mind, and it will be an actual experience for as long as the karma exists. It is just like the oil in a butter lamp. As long as there is the oil, there is this life. And when it comes exhausted, when the oil is gone, then one dies. For example, when the oil is burned out, then one dies. And then you die and go into the bardo. And then again, after death in the bardo also appears just like a dream-like vision. It is just that at that time you don't wake up from the dream anymore. But the suffering that you experience is exactly the same as in this life. It is the same kind of experience. The experience is an experience of the imprints that are within the mind. And then without any choice, just naturally it happens to you. And it appears. So when you understand that, then there is no need to talk much about past lives and future lives. We can see how causes lead to certain things that ripen, for as long as we do not eliminate the causes. Just like the seed ripens into a flower. So then how does it ripen? We have said first there is the full maturation. For example, when there is hatred, the full maturation is hell. And then there is after that, there is the dominating result. And that is when the hell is over and you still have some virtue left, and there is some slight virtue that you have done with love and compassion in the past, then you might be born in the human world as a human, but you have no choice as to where you will be born, the environment. It will be determined by your karma, and that is the dominating result. Also, this was explained by Jigten Sumgen also in the Gongchik, that it is you are naturally propelled by the force of karma, and you don't have an actual choice or independence as to where you will be born. But the force of karma will drive you. And so then once you are born as the dominating result, then the next result is the result that is similar to the cause. That means you will engage again in similar actions and will again experience similar experiences. So for example, as a dominating result, you will again be born as a result of hatred in a country of warfare. There's wars. So all of the people and the beings being born in this country have a similar karma that makes them be born there. And in other places, however, or in certain places, people have different karmas. There are slight variations. And there's people who have more happiness and people who have more suffering. And then there's people who have their houses burned down and some who don't. So there's a variation in the individual karma. But so there's a difference in how the subtle and the more coarse workings of karma. It manifests slightly different for different beings. But for as long as there is the karma, it will ripen. So whatever karma we have accumulated, for example, hatred, we are born in a certain place of warfare, for example. And then again, the result that is similar to the cause. First, we will engage in similar actions. Again, we will engage in actions of hatred. And again, we will experience the results of hatred. So we have similar experiences. And then there is, because of that, another result. It is called the proliferating result. So then again, we engage in action and it multiplies. The karma of that proliferates or multiplies more and more. So knowing that, you should recognize the fault of the cause, which is the afflictive emotion, in your own mind. And as it arises, have a sense of fear of the afflictive emotion. And that is really what is called the trusting faith. You're trusting in the harm of the afflictive emotions, in karma, trusting in karma. And whenever a negative emotion arises, such as jealousy, you will identify that to be my true enemy. That is the one who is creating all my suffering. So it is important that you recognize the fault of the afflictive emotion. Otherwise, it is hard to deal with the afflictive emotion as it arises as a feeling. And so whatever is the afflictive emotion, it arises from self-grasping. So the driving force of the affliction is self-grasping. It is ignorance, delusion. And for example, we are under the delusion to think that it is because he treated me bad that I have to revenge, because if I wouldn't revenge, it would mean that I have no courage. I'm not brave enough. And so again, we can see how what is driving this sense of hatred is really self-grasping. And in the same way, what is driving all positive emotions is a mind of love. So the causes lie within self-grasping or within love, and that is important to recognize, because then you are able to, you recognize the harm in the emotion, and you think that this is my own fault. This hatred is what creates all my suffering. I must let go of that. And all suffering comes from self-grasping. All happiness comes, and the cause of enlightenment comes from altruism. And then from altruism, from compassion, then come the 6 paramitas. So love is the driving force of the 6 paramitas, and self-grasping of all the afflictive emotions. So when you understand that, you will want to make an effort in love and in compassion. So how do we cultivate love and compassion? We begin with those that are close to us, like our friend. And then about anybody that we encounter, there's a certain feeling that arises. So you recognize, this is the feeling of love that I have cultivated today. And that is the cause of happiness. That is the one, so you need to identify it. And then again and again, with love, think about those that you love, the sentient beings. Think about their suffering, and compassion arises. And that is really what the Buddha has accumulated on his way to enlightenment throughout 3 countless aeons. The merit that he accumulated was love and compassion, and it manifested in the practice of the 6 paramitas. So if you know that, you will be able to create the causes of happiness naturally and avoid the causes of suffering naturally. And if you do only that, then you are a real Dhamma practitioner, a Buddhist practitioner. So many times the question arises what it really means to be a Buddhist practitioner when we take the refuge vow. When we take the refuge vow, the benefits of the refuge vow are described within these two pages. But if we just recite that alone, it is of no benefit, really. We need to understand what that really means. When we become a Buddhist, when I become a Buddhist, it means that I need to cultivate love. And in order to keep that love, I need to be patient. So however much we think about Buddhism and what it means, actually it always comes down to love and patience. So love and patience is sufficient to understand about Buddhism. If you have love and patience, you will naturally get along with your family and with your friends. You will be gentle with them, and and you will be harmonious. So when you become, when you say I am a Buddhist, what does it really mean? It means that I must have love for others. And if I want to sustain my love for others, I must also be patient. If you have that, then you are a real, an actual Buddhist, whether you call yourself that or not. So this is how we can identify a Buddhist. And that is what will really only, that is the only thing that will truly benefit us after death. Because our body is just like a guest house that we will leave aside. We will leave everything aside. We will leave our house, our friends, our possessions, our own body. We leave it all aside. We cast it aside, and all that continues on will be the mind. That is the only thing. And at that time, it is only love and patience that will be of any benefit at all. So when we take refuge, for instance, we take refuge in our inner Buddha, which is transcendent awareness. It is mindfulness. That is our true refuge, because our wisdom mind recognizes faults and qualities, can discern between right and wrong, can discern between self-grasping and altruism, knows that it should cherish love and compassion, that it must not lose it. And if you know that, if you have this discernment, you will always practice generosity, patience, ethical conduct, and as a result of that, temporarily, you will always experience the happiness of the higher realms. And ultimately, also, love and compassion becomes the cause for enlightenment, along with meditation and the cultivation of wisdom. But even if you have all these parameters, you also need to have diligence, perseverance in the practice. You need to understand and discern between what to do and what not to do, but also then you need a diligence to persevere in always doing that, in sustaining and practicing at all times. Because if you know it but you don't practice it, then it becomes really meaningless. So it is a continuum that need to be sustained. Gampopa had said, somebody who knows the Dharma but does not practice it is just like a sick person that has a bag of medicine next to their bed but does never eat it. So then the medicine becomes meaningless to them. Even though they know this is a very precious medicine, it doesn't help them if they don't eat it, if they don't use it. And that is the same for the Dharma. Even though we know it, we must also use the Dharma. So whatever Dharma you know, if you just know a bit about karma, it is sufficient. You cultivate love whenever you can, continuously. You cultivate even the slightest love, or you recognize even the smallest affliction as it arises. And if you're able to do that, then you are able to accept the suffering that you experience now in this life. And you are always able to recognize the causes of suffering, so you avoid more suffering in the future. And this is how you will actually attain freedom. Your true freedom is through your own mind. And so this is what is most important for you, my Dharma friends, is that when you understand the Dharma, to also make an effort to continuously apply that, to persevere in the practice that should be practiced, and to give up what should be given up. And so then the Dharma will be actually of benefit to you.
我们在讲到四无量心的另一个，就是愿众生离苦及苦因。那么我们要远离痛苦，应该知道说苦因要何在。一般来讲是从我们的负面情绪，由我们的烦恼而来的。当它熟成的时候，自然苦果就成熟的。那么它的苦的原因基本是来自于哪里呢？那当一个人充满嗔恨心的时候，它对应的将来就是将来的这个地狱道。那不管地狱道的众生有多少，那真正的地狱是什么呢？真正的地狱是我们自己的嗔恨心。有些人可能拥有一切的东西，可是如果这个人时时是非常的愤恨不平，经常生气的话，这所有他一切的财产对他来讲都是没有用的。因为他对别人都视为是敌人，都视为可能的这种威胁。刚刚讲到吉天松公主师曾提说，业力是内心念头的暂时显现及投射。那我们知道，一个奸贪的人，他将来是会对应到恶鬼道的。虽然我们这些我们暂时不能用肉眼来见，而可能对有些人来讲是难以相信的，可是这个当业力成熟的时候，我们知道这个果跟这个因是很接近，而且是相对应的。 在这样子以这样子的道理来看这个世间上的六道众生，轮回中的六道众生，他们的事实的实现呢，都是源自内心的种种念头或者是烦恼的。如果说他这个原因只是在自己的内心的话，其实是不太难，或许可以找出应对的道理。可是我们进一步要去分辨什么是真实的，到底白天的现实是真实的呢？或者是说晚上的梦境是幻象的呢？如果你今天你是佛的话，你可以见到说，即使是地狱也是不真实的。一般我们的众生都认为说白天是真实存在，那夜晚的梦是虚幻的。这其实梦也是这种业力这显现而来的。那我这一生其实都是我们业力的这种显现，就好像油灯中的油一样，只要有油在的话，灯就继续亮着。那油尽的时候，灯就枯了。当我们真的在这一生受尽的时候，到达中阴的阶段的时候，当我们反观这一世的一切的经验，我们就知道这一世的所有的经验其实都是幻象。那这就是我们内心印记的，没有选择的，因为业力成熟而显现出来的一种经验。如果我们能够了解到这一点，那我们就不必去执着去看过去世是怎么样子啊，现在生是怎么样子等等的。我们应该去了解业力是如何的能够成熟的。当然知道说嗔恨对应的是地狱。所以这个我们第一个要知道的是，它的果报的第一个很主导的一个果报是什么呢？在地狱的有的时候因为嗔恨而受生地狱，即使他身为人生的话，生在哪一个世界上哪一个地方哪一个国家，也是由业而定的。在我们的共期或者是一义这本书来讲说，我们的这个经验都是被业力所推动的。那这是这个业的第一个层次，它的产生的结果是有主宰这个将来这个结果的这个力量。第二个呢是果，是跟因是非常相近的。由这两点来讲，我们可以知道，就是说为什么有些人会生在一个战乱的国家，在这个战乱的国家里面，很多人有相同的业，他们也有他们的共业。可是除了共业之外，还有别业。在这个世界上，有些人的生活是快乐的，有些人是充满着痛苦的。即使一个社区被火来烧到了，有些房子被火烧掉，可是有些房子却幸于保存，这就是别业的道理。当我们的业成熟的时候，也就是嗔恨导致战乱，那我们一般的众生容易去行同样相似的这个业，而继续造相似的果。所以这个就是有这种业在这个地方有一种加成的作用跟效果。那如果我们知道有这样子的特性的话，我们应该知道，我们心的烦恼其实是我们真正的敌人，真正可怕的事是我们的心。那到了这里，我们能够产生一个非常深的程度的这种信心，能够深信因果。我们知道，嫉妒其实是我们自己真正的敌人。那么烦恼呢？因为烦恼念头的产生呢，我们去支持它，那么它就造成一种推力。比如说，我们今天认为说，这个人对我不好，那我一定要报复。如果我不去报复的话，我就是一个没有胆的人。那这个动力是什么呢？这个动力就是我们自己内心的这种执着。相反的呢，如果说我们了解这个嗔恨其实是苦因的时候，怎么样可以造成快乐？就是一种慈爱的这种心。苦都是来自于我们的我执的，乐都是来自于利他的。因为知道能够利他，它在日常生活的行持就是六度波罗蜜。我们应该去了解、去思维，怎么样能够长养我们自己的慈悲心。 从自己身边所爱的人开始，因为这是乐的原因。再进一步想到众生以及众生所受的苦，而自然而然产生的悲心。佛陀在过去也是这样子的，修了3大阿僧祇劫，透过6度波罗蜜来修持的。如果能够这样子的话，自然能够行善利他，而不做自私自利的事情。那么这个就才能够真正说是一个佛教的一个行者。当我们受皈依戒的时候，我们讲的一些念的这个戒文啊，其实听起来好像很简单，但是我们内心应该有真正正确的了解，要不然这些文你念过去就念过去，对我们是没有什么帮助的。什么叫做佛教徒呢？佛教徒是要有充满慈爱心的，除了慈爱心之外，还必须要有安忍或忍辱之心来支持我们的慈爱。这个两者的结合才是叫做一个佛教徒。如果说人真正有一个慈爱心的人呢，那么他又能够安忍，那么他就能够与家人朋友的安然相处。如果真的爱他们的话，那就要保持，怎么样保持自己爱他们的心呢？就是要修安忍，修忍辱。这个就是真正的佛教徒，因为在这个时候你才能够讲说能够利益他人。我们要知道我们自己的身体好像一个客房一样，当我们这个舍受的时候，要受尽要舍受的时候，我们舍弃的身体，我们舍弃的我们一切的财产都带不走，能够跟我们相随呢，就是我们的慈爱心。所以这就是我们皈依的时候讲到，我们要皈依我们内在的佛是什么？我们的正觉正念，能够产生超世智，那能够分辨什么是对的，什么是不对的，什么是我执，什么是要舍弃的。透过这样子的了解跟思维跟了解之后，我们自然能够行布施，能够行持戒，能够行安忍。那短暂的果报就是能够受生到善道。就近来讲，能够证得解脱。除了这个之外，我们还要透过禅修而能够长养我们的智慧。这5个之外，还必须加上精进，要持续不断的来继续这样子来修持，来保任我们的修持，无时无刻来保任我们的修持，要不然这些都没有意义。冈波巴大师曾讲过，用一个比喻讲说，当我们知道一个法而不去修法的时候，就好像患了一个重病的人，即使他的药在他的床旁边，他不去吃，这个药对他是没有用的。法如果我们知道不去修，这个法对我们也是无益的。那我们如果知道这一点的话，即使我们对佛教的知识只知道一点点因果业力的道理，那对我们来讲也是足够的。因为当很小的烦恼升起的时候，我们马上提认出来，接受它，知道说现在的经验，现在的都是过去的因所造成的，而能够更加的安忍，在短时间能够忍这个更大的这种痛苦，而就近来讲，能够真正的免于痛苦。诸佛友们，那么这个就是我们必须要继续维持保任的。那么应舍弃的就当舍弃，应保任的要继续保任，这样来讲才能够真正的利益自己，的利益别人。
当我能把意识，我这话我做法过，这边我的茶上，第3个这样做法呢，我能把意识。我哋呢度人參與參加係啲嚟嘅。
So if you say I'm a Buddhist, it means that I must have love and I must have patience. Otherwise, it would be very embarrassing to call myself a Buddhist. So being a Buddhist means also I must have love and I must have patience. So with these words, we stop the instructions for today and Tashi the neck.
当我们讲我是佛教徒的时候，我们必须要知道，我们必须要具有慈爱心，或者是大爱以及安忍。 要没有这两者的话，我们讲我们自己是佛教徒的时候，应该感到惭愧。那这边就是我今天跟大家的结语，到这边我祝福大家吉祥如意。回向 dedication page 11。We all do it in Tibetan.
好多听知，谢谢你们。